Welcome back. Iran's foreign minister meeting with China's top diplomat in Beijing. China reportedly urging Iran to pursue diplomacy and avoid hostilities as it is seeking to position itself as a mediator in the Middle East conflict. Of course, President Trump has been leading the discussions and told us yesterday that it could be ending very soon. Joining me now is Michigan Congressman John Moolenaar. He's the chairman of the House China Select Committee. Mr. Chairman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Maria.
Well, where do you see China's role in this Iran conflict at this point?
Well, initially, their role has been that they've been enabling Iran. They buy 90% of Iran's oil. They've been supplying parts for military equipment for Iran. They've been helping Iran geolocate and track things with satellites. So they've certainly been on the Iran side of this. If they can move to a more neutral position and be encouragers of Iran to negotiate and bring this to an end, I think that would be constructive. But so far, they have not shown that.
Right. And of course, the president has a meeting with Xi Jinping next week. When I spoke with the president 2 weeks ago, he told me that he sent a letter to Xi Jinping telling Xi Jinping not to provide weapons to Iran, and that Xi Jinping wrote him a letter back saying that he is not providing weapons. But we all know that China has been complicit in all of this. What do you want to see come out of this meeting, should, in fact, it be on? I'm skeptical in terms of whether or not this meeting in China has to be rescheduled again, given the fact that the president is dealing with Iran and this memorandum of understanding. What's your sense? You think this meeting takes place next week?
Well, I won't predict what the president will do, but he does have a lot on his plate. And I know he wants to do this meeting. And, I think it would be important to follow up from their previous meeting. Is China buying the agricultural products that they promised to do? Are they addressing the fentanyl that is poisoning Americans? Are they doing what they said they would do in the first place? And I think the president's very good at these negotiations, and there will be other areas where he could work to secure American jobs and more fair trade. But ultimately, the president has a lot that is happening right now, and whether he chooses to go forward with it or not, that'll be his decision.
Mm-hmm. Now, the president's signaling AI could be a key topic when he meets with Xi Jinping. Watch this.
We're leading China in AI, and I'm going to go see President Xi in 2 weeks. I look forward to that, but I'll say I'm leading. We have very friendly competition, but it'll be a very important trip.
Mr. Chairman, what are your thoughts on AI? I know this race is severe between the U.S. and China, and the question of whether or not the U.S. should be sending chips to China has come up. How would you assess this competition?
Well, I do believe we are leading, and countries around the world that are like-minded and promote freedom, I think hopefully will stay in the lead, because it's important that we don't allow China to access the best technologies, because they use this for dual uses, for military as well as commercial. And we don't want to enable the buildup of the Chinese military. And so the president's right, we are leading, but we need to make sure we have export controls in place that allow China to receive some of the chips, but not the best chips, and make sure we continue to keep and grow our lead in this area.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's also farmland, which is a real issue. The USDA data shows that Chinese investors owned nearly 248,000 acres of American farmland at the end of 2024. Two Chinese-owned companies, Brazos Highland Properties and Smithfield Foods, holding the largest stake and the largest share. Texas, North Carolina, and Missouri have the most Chinese-owned land. And I know, Mr. Chairman, some governors have come out with rules against this, but you're introducing a bill today to stop China from acquiring U.S. farmland. What are they trying to do here?
Well, as Secretary Rollins said, food security is national security, and China is buying up land. The estimates of, 250 or 300,000 acres, I believe, is low. We do need a process that doesn't preempt state laws. A lot of state legislators have done good work in preventing Chinese purchases of farmland. But what our bill does is identifies key areas of security. So it's ag land, it's sensitive sites near military bases or or energy sectors, other areas where there is a rigorous process to evaluate who is owning that land and make sure our foreign adversaries like China do not continue to buy up this farmland or other areas of sensitive sites.
Now, are they trying to buy the farmland so that they can be close to military installations so that they could surveil our military installations? Or are they trying to buy the farmland to control the food supply?
I think it's a combination of things. I think they are, dependent on importing their food, so they want other sources of that. But they also use this strategically, and they buy up properties near military bases. We saw 5 Chinese nationals spying outside of Camp Grayling in Michigan. We've seen this on numerous occasions where they will try and crash the gate of military installations. So there are multiple reasons for this, but that's why we believe the federal government needs to be very vigilant in this area, and the Agriculture Secretary should be part of the process for the Committee on Foreign Investments in the U.S. that evaluate these risks.
All right, we'll be watching all of that. Great to talk with you, Congressman. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be with you.
All right, Chairman John Moolenaar, stay with us. We'll be right back.